So let me ask you a question. What does the word peace actually mean to you? It sounds so simple, right? It's just the opposite of war. But what if I told you that this common understanding, the one we all kind of grow up with, isn't just incomplete, it can be dangerously misleading?
Okay, take a look at North and South Korea. Technically, they haven't been in a major hot war since the armistice way back in 1953. So, by that simple definition, is their relationship peaceful? It feels wrong to say that, doesn't it? And that feeling, that's the heart of the problem we're going to explore today.
For a long, long time, this was pretty much the official definition. Scholars, policymakers, you name it, they all saw peace as just the absence of war. The fighting stops, the guns go silent, and boom, you have peace. It's a very straightforward black and white way of looking at the world. You're either at war or you're at peace.
But when you start applying that simple definition, you run into some pretty weird situations. I mean, if peace is just not war, then the incredibly tense standoff between North and South Korea gets put in the exact same box as the genuinely friendly relationship between, say, Sweden and Norway. An authoritarian state with deep internal problems is considered just as peaceful as a stable, prosperous democracy. It just doesn't add up, right?
So it forces us to ask, what is peace really? We have to go deeper and challenge our most basic assumptions about what conflict and peace even are. And luckily for us, a brilliant framework for this came from a Norwegian sociologist named Johan Galtung. Back in the 1960s, Galtung, who was one of the founders of peace and conflict studies, saw this exact problem and came up with a much more powerful way to think about it. And it all comes down to this, his groundbreaking distinction between what he called negative peace and positive peace.
Okay, so here's the breakdown. Negative peace is what we've been talking about so far. It's just the absence of direct violence. You stop the shooting, you sign a ceasefire, that's negative peace. But positive peace, that's a whole different level. It's about getting rid of something much trickier, what Galtung called structural violence. It's about building just systems and integrating society. It's not just about stopping the bad stuff, it's about actively creating the good stuff. You know, the economist and peace researcher Kenneth Boulding described it beautifully. He said positive peace isn't an empty space. It's an active condition of good management, orderly resolution of conflict, harmony, and so on. It's a living, breathing state of being, not just the quiet after a storm. All right, so that term Galtung used, structural violence. What on earth does that mean? Well, let's unpack it, because this is the key to understanding the whole idea of positive peace. It's about the violence that's hidden right inside our systems. So, structural violence isn't one person hitting another. It's when the harm comes from the system itself. It's indirect, it's often invisible, and there's no single person to blame. It's the kind of violence that happens when a society is built in a way that just hurts people, even if no one intends for it to. Let me break it down for you. First, a social system creates these huge inequalities. Maybe it's unequal access to good food or healthcare or education. Then, step two, this inequality directly leads to suffering and even death that was totally preventable. And here's the kicker. Step three. Galtung argued that this is a form of violence. If people are dying from treatable diseases because they can't afford a doctor, that's violence. No one has to pull a trigger for it to be deadly. Okay, so this is a really fascinating theory, right? But you might be wondering, why does this distinction actually matter? How does this idea from the 60s impact the real world today? Well, it turns out it has a huge impact. You can actually see this shift in thinking reflected in a really famous institution, the Nobel Peace Prize. If you look at the prizes awarded before 1945, a huge majority, 68%, went to what we'd call negative peace efforts. You know, things like ending wars, negotiating treaties. But after World War II, there's this dramatic flip. All of a sudden, 55% of the prizes started going to positive peace efforts, things like promoting human rights, fighting poverty, and education. Our whole global idea of what peace work even is has totally evolved. And this evolution in thinking is absolutely crucial because it helps us avoid what might be one of the most dangerous pitfalls in peacemaking, the mission accomplished trap. You've seen this play out before. A war ends, the fighting stops. Leaders stand up in front of a banner, declare victory, and say, mission accomplished. Then, all the attention, all the money, all the resources, they're diverted somewhere else. But the underlying causes of the war, that structural violence we talked about, are left to just fester under the surface. This doesn't create real, lasting peace. It's a recipe for future conflict. It's a temporary ceasefire, not a cure. And that brings us to the final, really critical question. A question we have to ask ourselves about our own communities, our own nations. Are we truly building positive peace? Are we actually doing the hard work of dismantling those systems of structural violence? Or have we just settled for the quiet of negative peace? Have we mistaken the absence of shouting for the presence of harmony? That, right there, is the challenge Johann Galtung left for all of us.